Okay. All right, guys. Hope you're all having a good time here. Is anybody else having trouble concentrating because you're getting so many wacky ideas from these presenters? Yeah, I had this entire block of work for my 16-hour flight home I was going to do, but after listening to some of these presenters, I'm kind of trying to figure out a way to push that aside so I can play all the way on the flight home. So, hope you guys are enjoying the conference. Now, this session I call PowerShell for the Masses. This is how I'm going to show you how to get a raise. This is how I'm going to show you how to help other people. What? Oh, and you heard Sebastian hears raise and he sticks around. Thanks, bud. Thanks for your support. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, again, my name's Jason Yoder. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. That means Microsoft has given me their blessings to teach their official content. And I'll be honest with you, the one that I deliver about 90% of the time is PowerShell, which I was very fortunate to help Microsoft develop that actual class. You guys also see I'm a chief in the United States Navy. I'm an information systems technician, so I'm kind of a nerd here in this world and a nerd in that world as well. So I get to play with a lot of neat stuff. If you guys are interested, this is actually where my online brain, it's about to move to a new site, but you guys will see it if you go up there. You can also follow me on Twitter. All right, so this is what we're going to be covering here today. We're going to talk a little bit about you sharing your PowerShell knowledge to make life easier for other people. So essentially, I'm going to ask you to approach your jobs with a servant's heart, but don't worry, there's something in it for you. All right? Because, well, you know, who are we going to write code for? Well, obviously you're going to do it for yourself, right? Because you're going to make your life easier. That's the idea. Now, the thing we have to remember is that we also have other members of the IT staff who may not be so into PowerShell, right? But we can still help them out. But what I want you to look for are those people who have repetitive tasks. And I'm not talking technical people. I'm talking about people, standard users. When you say to somebody, hey, do you want me to get some PowerShell for that? They're thinking that you have a new battery to charge your phone off of. All right, no, seriously, that's what we're doing here because there's so much potential out there. So, well, let me tell you what's kind of like in the States. Now, recently I just filled in at a college. They had to have somebody come in real quick and teach some computer science, all right? So I filled in, and before I got there, I did a job search. I haven't done a job search in 10 years. Now, 10 years ago, looking at the requirements, I'm seeing, okay, 3 major software disciplines they wanted me to be a subject matter expert in. Guess how many I counted on multiple job listings? 11. I have a good friend who also went on to the job hunt, got into the second interview. And you know what they said to her? Yeah, we're expecting you to work a minimum of 80 hours a week. Now, that doesn't mean she's going to work 80 hours. That's the minimum. It's actually going to be more. All right? So, yeah, we really do have to be more than one person. And as we saw in the keynote speeches this morning, those who can automate are going to be the successful ones. But we know that standard end users can automate. That's where you're going to come into play. All right, so a few things to think about. Yes, by the way, I got some neat code to show you, but we got to get through the concepts first. What to think about in writing code, especially when it comes for other people. Is this automation involving an application? That might be a problem. But sometimes you can access those applications with PowerShell. Like, for example, I had to create reports that they absolutely wanted to done in Excel. And it's kind of dynamic in how the code had to be written because some cases they wanted pretty colors, other times they wanted conditional formatting. So I had to do it in code and take control of Excel. In the code I'm going to give you guys a download link for. Microsoft actually publishes how to grab a hold of Excel. I'm going to be honest with you, it's a tediously slow process. Not something I would normally recommend, but in that scenario, it had to be done. All right, what inputs is that user going to need to provide? Because you need to find out how they're getting those inputs. And can you grab those inputs in code? We're going to reduce human error by doing this, aren't we? All right, so take a look at that. what output's going to be expected. You need to make sure that whatever product you produce is going to meet their expectations. We're going to talk about text-based interface and users here in a second, because I guarantee you that's not what they're looking for. But you guys also have to look at this. What kind of errors can you expect? Because you're going to need to know how to handle those. What happens if something's not available? How are you going to deal with it in a way that will not cause the user to go into a massive panic attack? You guys tell I've done this a few times? Yeah, I've had to learn the hard way. I also need to know how I'm going to report success or failure so I know if the code is broken. Because you know, users will change what they need to do and they kind of forget to include you in on this, right? You actually rely on your users to be consistent? Yeah. I wouldn't. Okay, guys, so let me just explain to you what's going to happen when you try to put a user into PowerShell. And again, we're talking about people who don't have the foggiest idea what PowerShell is. For the last 20 plus years, they have been in this. A nice, pretty graphical environment. They've been happily clicking away. All right? And you want to do this to them. Huh. Let me show you. For you and I, this is a no-brainer. We love PowerShell. We're PowerShell enthusiasts. I'll be honest with you guys. If you start telling me about a problem you're having, I'm already writing. Yes, I'm this big of a nerd. I'm already writing code, all right? This is a no-brainer. But let's look at it from the user's perspective. From the user's perspective, it's like this. Whoop. I'm going to take you from a high-end Xbox game, take that away from you, and this is your form of entertainment. Pong. It's not going to end well, guys, all right? So there's a few things we're going to have to do here. So you're going to have to sell this to your users, what you're about to do to them. And it is going to be, in some cases, I'm not kidding you guys, I have been in some serious yelling arguments with people. Not me yelling back, them yelling at me, because there's a good possibility for a while they'll fight you. So first of all, well, before I start this here, guys, I'm going to encourage you all to initiate a social engineering attack. Who knows what social engineering is? It's the way how people get your end users to click on bad links. And then you get ransomware, their credit card numbers are stolen, all that neat stuff. So I wish Sebastian was still in here. So Sebastian and I, we do a lot of photography. We've been out these last few nights. That's kind of our thing, all right? And what's really funny is, and I definitely noticed, I did this in Spain, and I've noticed it's happening here. What I did is I found an alley with a dumpster. Totally uninteresting. I put my big camera up on its tripod and pretended I'm taking pictures. And I left my phone up there. This is what's happening. People come up and look, and they start clicking. I'm just one by one, people. And they're taking pictures of garbage, literally, people. All right, that's social engineering. You're going to have to do that to your users. One thing you can do is to help demonstrate the time savings. So I taught a 10-day PowerShell class to the United States Navy. The people who took this class, I mean, no, we went through 10 days, 2 weeks. I came back a month later. And one of the people who took my class the previous month said, hey, Jason, is this a good example of automation? See, the thing is, they had a task that took 28 days to complete. 4 times a year. I can't tell you what the task was because of the context, but this is, I said, well, okay, how long does it take you now? 20 minutes. He won over some end users on that one. 28 days, 4 times a year, down to 20 minutes. That's serious. That is some serious automation, but let me tell you what I had to do with some people. I was called out to our base in Naples, Italy. One of the things they had me do was, and this is ridiculous, I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with government work, but they tell you what they need to done. This was literally just a mechanism to deploy a client operating system. This is a no-brainer. I'm like, watch this. Now, let me tell you your restrictions. It was like typing with both hands tied behind your back. All right? This was the end procedure, guys. Here's the computer. You plug in the USB drive, turn it on, wait till the command prompt comes up, type a line, let it reboot. When it comes up, type a line, go to coffee for the next 2 hours. When you come back, everything that's taken you 8 hours to normally do is done. We had to call in their manager because as I went to collect them for their assigned training time, I cannot repeat in this environment what I was told. They fought left and right. Matter of fact, their manager had to stand over them and order them to type 2 commands. And when they realized, is that it? All of a sudden, their mind changed from combative to, hey, can you also do this? All right? So what we got them to do is achieve what's called buy-in. Now they're starting to get a vested interest. This is something that's going to help them. And it may take some time. So I highly encourage you guys to include the end user in the process of development. Help them overcome their fears. Because what happens when you introduce something new to an end user? It's like a panic attack, isn't it? All right, this is actually something good for them, but don't worry, there's something good for you that's coming up here as well. All right, so one thing you might want to consider is dealing with that text-based environment. Because again, they're not going to like it. You might want to, and I know this is a PowerShell summit, you guys might want to consider slapping a GUI on top of your code. Notice I didn't say write the code for the GUI, slap it on top. I'm going to show you guys how, show you guys how here in a few minutes with Sapiens PowerShell Studio, okay? But before we do that, we've got to have some working code. All right, so first of all, guys, before we go any further, we need to have a mechanism that allows you to quantify what you're about to do. How many of you are in a business where the primary income element is IT? How many of you are in a business where the primary income element is not IT? You're known as support. That's going to be a lot of people. Okay, so there's a few ways that we can make more money in business. We can sell more product, we can raise price, or we can reduce costs. And that's really what we can do in the PowerShell world, is help reduce those costs. So what I want to do is show you how to justify your next raise. I want you to have tangible evidence that's unquestionable how your skill set in PowerShell is not just benefiting all of these people, but it's benefiting management. And we all know the one language they speak is what? Money, right? Okay, so I want to make sure not only does more of that hit management, but more of it hits you. So this is what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to have a little setup here. I need to put into my PowerShell code some function that, when complete, is going to just write a simple log entry somewhere. So we're going to have a server out there. We're going to set up a share. You can make this a hidden share. I don't care. All right? And then you're going to put a log file out there. And inside the code that you're going to deploy, every time somebody runs your code, some server, some mechanism, what have you, runs your code, they're going to report it. Because that is time savings that you have contributed to your organization. So, what I'm going to show you guys here, first of all, and by the way, I'll show you guys the link to this code so you can get a hold of it later on. Real quickly here, now this setup I have, I'm demonstrating something that I came up with during one of these classes. So this setup is very similar to what we do in Microsoft's official PowerShell class. I have to stick to essentially what I teach in those classes. So some of this may be a little simplistic, but that's okay. That means there's a good chance it's going to work. First of all, guys, all I'm going to do in this block of code is set up a shared resource on this server. I also made sure the permissions allowed our normal users to write to it, because they're going to be opening this, they're going to be running this under their security context. I need to make sure that when they do run it, you get the credit. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is just simulate a whole bunch of these log entries. Before I show you any other code, I want to show you what you're going to see in the end. This little block of code is going to generate basically some fake log entries. Let it go. Now, the whole idea is that you're now approaching your annual evaluation. Isn't that when you ask for a raise? So let's see what has happened. So I'm going to run this little command I have in the module I'm going to hand out to you guys. Get quantification, and I want to measure it. By default, it's going to measure based on users, how much time they save. Now, these numbers are pretty low because I only did so many entries. Now, this doesn't give me any dollar figures, does it? Theoretically, what your boss can do is send this data in a nice little spreadsheet. It's a CSV over to HR. HR knows the cost per hour of each employee. If they kind of just plug and chug and then add all those numbers up, there's no way anybody can reverse engineer what people make, right? They can privately hand that number to your boss. And now the boss can see what may potentially be 6 to 7 figures of savings that you have contributed to the company. There's a few other modes that it can run in. If it runs based not on user, but maybe on server, node, whatever you want to call it these days, there you go. All right. If you want to do it based on what scripts, the quantification for each script, there you go. All right, so it can all be reported back. It's all object-based, so you can do whatever you want with it. But again, the idea is I want you guys to quantify your contribution. So let's take a look at something that actually happened inside one of these classes. Now, here's the scenario. I'm describing some things that we can do with PowerShell. We're already, I think, 2 or 3 days into a 5-day class. And I simply showed them one commandlet that I know solves a problem that so many people who do network administration has to deal with. The client was Maine Medical. Now, here's the thing. Maine Medical is having issues with the client machines not having credentials that matched up in Active Directory, which was really alarming. You guys might recognize this. Who's seen this message before on their client workstations? How did you fix it? I'm sorry, sir. What was that? That's right. You log in, you take it off the domain, which causes a reboot. You put it back on the domain, which causes a reboot. And then everybody's happy, right? How'd you fix it? Yes, you can do that, but sometimes it doesn't always work. Now, here's the deal. Let's go ahead and simulate this problem so I can show you guys the fix for it. First of all, I asked them, well, first, we need to actually figure out the root cause of this problem, because I could patch this, but it's not going to do us any good. I can't tell you what the root cause was because of confidentiality, but they assured me they could not, because of the software being used, they could not fix the root cause. Okay, so the obvious fix is we can't do. So we can at least do a mitigation, and that's what we came up with. Now, they were able to use either DHCP or DNS to at least pull the last known IP address. So they had 2 chances of knowing what the IP address of this machine is, because we're going to need it. This little piece of code I created, and I do apologize for leaving in the default values on these parameters, but I had to try again. These people are really starting off. I have to keep things simple. So this thing was kind of hard-coded to work inside of that environment, but you guys can take away those default values and do what you want with them. All right, so really all we're doing here is running test computer, secure channel, repair the connection, and the world's a happy place. Now, if you were able to connect to or walk into this machine, just type this in and give it domain credentials, cool, it will work. But I'll tell you why we needed to do it in code. First of all, guys, I'm going to simulate the problem. So I have this Hyper-V scenario set up again, how we would have the Microsoft Labs. I'm going to go ahead and pause client 1. Now, just to show you guys real quick, we have the ability to log into it, okay? So everything's just fine. There's no big issues. Let me don't restart. Log off. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to pause the VM so it's no longer talking with its domain controller. What? I left an app open? Oh well. Pause. All right, it's suspended, it's not talking. Let's really mess things up. I'm going to do this the graphical way because I know a lot of you are familiar with this. And Dan, I think this is what you do to fix it. I'm going to do it to break it. I'm going to reset the account. All right? So in Active Directory, it's been reset. And this simulates the problem they're having. I'm going to go ahead and allow the machine to run again. I'm going to go ahead and log in. Notice I'm the domain admin. And therein lies the problem. Now I think this is not a big deal. Oh, here's the problem, guys. The cost to Maine Medical on this issue. Did I mention that this normally does not happen on the main campus? And therein lies our problem. So it took a technician 2 hours of drive time, round trip. In that 2 hours, the end user was basically playing video games on their phone for an entire hour. Alarmingly, the annual rate of occurrence on this was 80 times a year. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I'd be focusing on that root cause, but they wouldn't let me do it. So now that's 240 hours. Now this does not include the time to recover those lost hours. So you guys can see this is starting to add up a bill. Essentially, they're losing a month's worth of somebody's salary on this one issue. This is just one. So just to show you guys, the code did in fact fix the problem. I'm going to go ahead and put this code in the memory. And I'm going to go ahead and run the commandlet. I'm going to go ahead and give it the password of a local administrator account. They did have a list of all their local admin accounts and the passwords, so that was not an issue. Very simple. It's going to fix the problem. It's going to report back true. And the reason why it's coming back true is to support what we're going to do here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and log in, just show you guys the world is once again a happy place. Whoops, helps if I type the password correctly. All right, world's a happy place, at least for this iteration. Or it better be. There we go. All right. Let me sign back out because we're going to have to break this again. Now, about quantifying this, because that's a lot of money. And I want that money, at least a good part of it, transferred to your pocketbook if that's okay with you guys, right? So I wrote up a little PowerShell module. I'm going to give you guys the link to it. It's not at the point where I want to completely put it up on the gallery, but you guys will get access to it. It has a few commandlets in it. Now, that, of course, would require your commandlets to be on those machines out there for this to be used. If you don't have a mechanism to do that, it's okay. The one function, the one commandlet you use is called write quantification. You can just put that straight into your code and call it within the code, all right? So what we're going to do with this is, anytime our code runs, we are going to have that code in there. So right now, guys, here it is, write quantification. Now, the whole idea behind this, again, is to record some things. So I'm going to now this is something that manually has to go into your code. You notice if the result is true, what comes back from test computer secure channel, if you do the repair, it's either true or false. If it's false, I'm not going to record it as being successful because obviously it did not work. If it is true, I want this function to run. It's going to say the name of the script in case you need to be recording by that. The time saved in minutes. Now let me be very clear. Do not embellish this number. Do not make it larger than what it actually is, because what potentially could happen if you do that? If it's ever discovered that you make this number bigger than what it actually is, you will never be able to use what I'm about to show you because you will not be trusted. As a matter of fact, what I do is I time the users. And at first, they're just going to be smoking through the task. Nah, you make them do multiple iterations, all right? Make them bored. Get them to the speed they actually do the work at, and then you average it over several iterations and normals out the data for you, okay? That's what you need. You don't need to embellish this, guys, because with time, this is going to really look good. All right. If you want to put a message in this log, you can. If you want to do any events, IDs for anything, you can do that. And this, of course, is where the log path is. Now, I'm running this locally, but you can make that a UNC so you can get it out to that share. So, let's see. I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to break this thing once again. We're going to reset it. Start her up. We're going to attempt to log in just to verify that we have now caused our issue once again. We have. All right, so let's go ahead and use the modify code. So the code is exactly the same as what we had earlier, but this time we have the code to write it to our event log. So let's go ahead and do that. Put it into memory. Run the code. All right, first of all, let's verify. Did we still fix our problem? We did. Did we quantify our results? There it is. We did. So again, guys, don't embellish that number, because the more automation that you provide to other people, the faster that number is going to grow on its own, no further effort on your part. And then in the end, you'll be able to justify why you spend so much time in PowerShell. Now, one of the reasons why I came up with this was many years ago. I worked at an organization where I was merely considered support. We had a user to IT professional ratio of 180 to 1. You want to talk about a nightmare scenario. All right, the president of the company would say, I need this. So I do a little study, find out how to make it happen, price out the equipment, hand him a 6-figure bill. Oh, I wasn't going to spend any money. You just need to make it happen with what we've got. We don't even have what we need. All right, that's the kind of environment I was in. He got really upset with me one day. He came into my office. He said, Jason, I have an entire company in Louisville, Kentucky, where all of my programmers are at. I have an entire company in Bangalore, India, that does all of my coding. Why are you wasting time writing code? Well, at my evaluation, I handed in to my, you're my boss, by the way. All right. I handed in all my manual labor. Oh, Jason, this is great. Yay. He goes, what's that? I said, those are the 2 employees you didn't hire this year. In the course of 6 months, I was able to prove that my automation actually prevented us from hiring 2 people. Now, that was only in the last 6 months of my evaluation period. Think about if I was doing it for the entire time. Okay? So again, guys, be humble when you do this, but let's rig this up for an end user. Now, the example I'm using here, I wanted to bring something real in. It's not necessarily something we would let an end user do, right? But we're still going to automate this. So the whole idea is always, we're going to do a GUI. Always get your PowerShell code fully functional before you attempt this, okay? Putting up a GUI is a completely different programming process. All right, so when you have an object, I assume we all know what an object is, right? All right, an object has 3 members. What are they? Properties, methods, events. A property describes an object. It describes its state, okay? But every user object is going to have a given name, right? And of course, we all know all users have a given name of Jason, right? Because if they, no, that's not how this works, okay? Methods, it's an action that an object can take on itself, okay? Like, for example, with that split method, I'm sorry, I can't remember who was doing it earlier today, when they're doing the pester thingy, all right? But an event is kind of like when something outside occurs, and that's what you have to program for when you do these GUIs. We're going to take this code, and we're going to turn it into a GUI and bring it back into this environment. So what I'm going to do is, let me check the time. Okay. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to quickly write part of this GUI because I want to show you guys how to take PowerShell script that you have already created, and I want you guys to be able to put it into this environment. So let me see real quickly here. I need to copy that little block of code. So I'm going to copy this entire function into memory, and we'll come back to it in just a few minutes. All right, so here we are. This is one of our sponsors, by the way, Sapient Technologies. No, I do not get a kickback for this, Max. We have their tech evangelist in the room with us, so he's grading me. All right, so anyhow, guys, what we're going to do is real quick. I'm going to do a new form project. This is going to allow me to bring in other files, namely my PowerShell code. So let me do a project name, PS Asia demo. Whoops, demo is what I'm going to quickly call this. I'm going to have a blank form up here, empty form. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some external code. Now, it could be code you already created. I'm just going to create a new file and paste everything in there. So it's going to be an empty PowerShell script. And we're going to call this, the actual command name was reset main medical computer account. I'm going to paste my code straight into this and save it. So it's the same code I just used. All right? Next, I'm going to go over here to the main form, and this is where we get to do a little drag and drop, beautiful visual programming. And let's see here. We're going to need a few items here. So let's think about those inputs I needed earlier. We needed the IP address, the computer name. We needed an local admin account, a domain admin account, and the domain name. So let's see what happens here if we play around a little bit. Real quickly here, I'm just going to make a few labels. And I'm going to cheat a little and do some copy and pasting to kind of speed this up. I've only got 10 minutes left. All right? So this, whoop, didn't want to do that part. Designer view, there we go. Down here in the text, I'm just going to say this is the IP address. I'm going to copy and paste this several times. So we need the IP address, client name, local admin, domain admin, and domain. So let me just change these real quick. So this was client name. This is local admin. Where did my text go? Text, there it is. There's local admin, domain admin, and then finally we also needed to collect the name of the domain, which, yeah, technically speaking, I could have stole from PowerShell, but let's just play. Next, guys, I need some mechanism to fill in the blanks. So let's do a little drag and drop. We're going to go ahead and grab a text box object. And what did I make this font size? It was 12, so I'm just going to change this real quick. All right, and I'm just going to copy and paste these real quick. Now, guys, these are objects. We're going to reference them as if they're variables. That's the neat thing. Oh, I also need a mechanism in place here for us to actually tell it to do something. Let's, we'll do this. We'll have a button that we're going to call, whoops, I double-clicked it. We're going to tell, this is when we're going to tell it to reset. We'll do another one to exit the form. And then simply put another one out here, another label. And this label's just simply going to give the result. Did it actually work or not? All right, you see how fast that drag and drop was? Oh, we still have to code. All right, so let me show you real quick when it comes to these events. Remember, an event is when something occurs. I want to register an event when I click on that thing, okay? Do this with the GUI. If you try typing this in the scripting pane, it's not going to register. So you got to do it this way. I'm going to right mouse click this reset. Its default event is click. Now it puts into the code. When I click, whatever is inside this area here is going to run. So when you do programming with this, we're kind of used to the top-down architecture. You know, what programs are compiled, scripts are interpreted line by line at runtime. These can be in any order because we're responding to events. Now what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to skip slightly ahead to the actual finished code. Right now, by the way, there's a huge amount of code that has already been written, and we're probably going to run out of time. So I will park myself out here, and anybody who wants to see the real code, I'll show you, okay, if we run out of time. So what I'm going to do is, guys, I'm going to jump ahead and go line by line here what happens. So let me go ahead and I'm going to open up a project. not this project. Where's my start page? Here it is. Reset computer account. Now let's not save our changes. All right, so guys, this is what our main form looks like right now. This is the GUI. Now again, I know this is not something you would give to an end user, all right, but let's just roll with it for example's sake. All right, so let's look at how I make this happen. So to exit, remember we have a button to exit the program. I'm simply going to call the forms close method. When we're ready, that's why I have the T up here. All right, so let's get ready to call our reset computer account, all right? The result, remember how I determine if I'm going to use my event log or not? The result has to be true. I'm also going to use that to report on the screen whether it's done or not. I'm going to run invoke -reset-mm computer account _ps1. Oh look, doesn't that kind of sort of resemble the name of the script that's part of the project? That's how you're going to call it. The cool thing is that all the parameters will become tab completable. Here, let me show you something. Let me just kind of break this backtick here. Look at this, dash. Oh look, the parameters become tab completable. Isn't that convenient? So what we're going to do is I need to populate the value of IP address with the value of this text box. Take a look on the design name property. I call this text box IP address. The value of the IP address parameter is $text box IP address. It has a property called text. Wasn't that creative? That's the value of whatever you just typed in. That's going to become the value of that parameter. Now notice I'm saving the output in a variable I called result. Remember the output of our code, true if it worked, false if it's not. If the result is true, I'm going to light up my little result box as green. If not, it's going to come back as red. All right? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to deploy it. I'm going to quickly build this into an exe, and I'm going to copy it into our environment. All right, here's the exe. I'm going to copy this, and let's roll over here to our virtual environment, and I'm going to paste it right up here on the desktop. I'm going to double click it. Isn't that what a user would rather see? I don't know about you guys, but if you attempted to try to get them to type that entire command line with all those parameters, it's not going to end well. They're not going to use it. I want them to use it because this is going to quantify my next raise. I'm sorry. It's going to make life so much easier for them. It will benefit them because they will be able to go home on time and see their children. No, it's going to benefit my raise. Let's be serious, people. All right, so let's try this one out here. So the client name, oh, here, let me totally mess this up again. Pause. All right, and go in here, reset the account, yada, 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 yada. Bring it back and prove to you that I once again broke my network. I broke my network. Okay. Here we go. Back to our GUI. So the client name on this one was CL1. The IP, I totally forgot the IP address. 172.16. Oh shoot, what was the IP address? Hello, PowerShell. What was my IP address? There it is. Sorry, I got to ask the question. What was my IP address on this guy? Yeah, 1.30. Okay. 16.1.30. The local admin account is going to be I know, we have really creative and secure usernames here. Domain account was administrator. The domain name is adatum. Please fix my problem. I still have to provide credentials. Yes, I could actually put that in there. All right, but get credential pops it up anyhow. So let's see. Let's put it in there. Password, PASS, because again, it's still all a GUI. The user's going to love it. Oh, and I messed something up big time. 8 add. What did I type wrong on the IP? Whoa! And you see it says status error when it doesn't, okay, 192.168. I'm doing the Microsoft address, 1.30. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, let's try this again. Fix. PASSW0RD. PAS, yeah, that's not the, I'm not reciting passwords as I type them, because that would be bad, right? Huh. Isn't that special? And we're done. All right? So guys, definitely encourage you to take a look at PowerShell Studio. Again, I get nothing from Sapient except Max's company. I treasure it, by the way. All right? So here's the deal. When I demonstrated, now, by the way, this code, I had 30 minutes because I threw them into a lab and I dreamt up this experiment. I did not put it into a GUI, but the code you guys saw, it's a little rough because I had 30 minutes to really pop their interest, and it worked, all right? In another class I demonstrated this in, as I put it, it took about 5 minutes into the demo, and somebody just threw their hands up in the air. Well, you know what? I'm the instructor. Something's wrong. I need to figure out what's happening. I said, what's wrong? I spent an entire day just to get 3 items in that form, and you just did that in 5 minutes? Yeah. Oh, by the way, do I get a kickback now because he went and bought the software like 5 minutes later? Turn around. Huh? Okay. Yeah, I bet you will. Okay, so anyhow, guys, definitely think about that. I want you guys to have a raise. You need to quantify this stuff out, and let me give you where you're going to get this code. Right there. Go ahead and write that down. I'll keep that up there, guys. I just remembered I didn't port the code I just created in PowerShell Studio. I'll go do that after the demonstration. Put it up there as well. The source code I use to step through this is all there. A copy of the quantification module is also up there for you guys. And remember, if you can't put that quantification module out on the machines, crack it open. The commandlet write quantification, you paste that, and this has to be at the end of your code. Well, that doesn't have to be in your code, but when you call it in your code, make sure you call it only for success. Cool? Questions?
Thank you, Jason. He's a great trainer, let me tell you.
Oh, thanks, Max. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Well, like I said, what time do we have? Oh, I got 20 seconds to figure out where did I put the source code. Hang on. Well, since our last speaker went over, no, hang on. Oh, let's see. Here it is, and let me actually open up the ICE real quick because I think, if I remember right, is this the one, Max, or is that a different file? Bin 64.
Yeah, that's the one.
Not the executable. I want the one that has the full-blown. It's in the project?
Yeah.
And I just lost it. Here, let me open up this so we can go to all files. But guys, you're going to be, it's amazing what I did not have to do. Bin file. Is it the package?
Both of them. All of them is fine, man.
Here we go. All right, guys, so here it goes, because this is going to pull .NET. Guys. So this is obviously Windows PowerShell, not PowerShell Core here. All right, so take a look at this one, guys. Everything you're seeing, I didn't do. I just drag dropped, okay? And let's see here. Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is when we're calling some objects out of the .NET framework so we can build our forms. It is using Windows Forms. All right, you guys might recognize some of these things like the text box for the local admin account, the text box for the IP account, our IP address. We all had to call objects, put them in the variables so they can be referenced. This is what you saw. This is what I coded here. Wait for it, and okay, the rest of it's self-generated. We have to have code that brings this stuff up, that actually builds the form, allows it to be displayed, associates all those controls with the form. Here's where it adds them in. And oh, by the way, every one of these has some properties that need to be filled in. All of that was done inside the visual environment. All right, so no, the GUI is not dead for you and I as PowerShellers. You're probably not going to do this a lot for yourself. I'm going to be honest with you because we can't automate too heavily for ourselves. But you can do this for others. And again, look how much code I did not have to write. Dang, it's still going. There we go. Here's the actual invoke, reset, computer machine account code that I included in the project file. Alrighty? All right, just so I can make way for the next presenter, if anybody has any questions about any of this, you'll find me out there in about 2 minutes, okay? Thank you very much.